Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us again today. Today, we will be going over Google Forms. Google Forms are a great way to manage your event registrations, create a quick opinion poll, and lots of others. So today, we'll be covering how to create a new form, including adding questions and editing those questions, and then customizing your forms. So once we cover customizing the form and editing that form, we can share it with people. We can send it out with a link or by embedding it on your website. And we will also go over how to analyze the responses in your form. And then lastly, we will cover printing the form and the responses. So to get started, I'm going to go to my Gmail account. And you sign into your Gmail account just like we did in previous sessions. And there's a couple of different ways that you can start a form. The first way is by going to forms.google.com, and you'll get these options here. You can choose to create a blank form, or you can choose from a template. I'm going to choose a blank form. Another way to do this is by going to your Google Drive, and here you see my Google Drive, and you can choose the plus sign and new, scroll down to Google Forms, and if you go over this arrow here, you'll see a couple of different options. You can create a blank form, a blank quiz, or a form from a template. I'm going to create a blank form, so I'll choose blank form here. And automatically, it starts my first question. It gives me a little header. It gives me a title. And once you've created that form, the first thing you want to do is add a title to it. So if you go up to the upper left-hand corner here and click on that title, it will highlight it for you. And now all you have to do is add a new title. Let's call it title. And I hit enter, or click out of that. And if you notice, the title at the top of my form also changed. And then you can add a form description below that just by clicking within that, and you can edit that form description. And then my first question has already been started. It's called Untitled Question. It happens to be a multiple choice. You can add all kinds of different questions in forms. So if you click on this drop-down menu here, you're actually going to see all the different types of questions that you can add to your form. A short answer is exactly what it sounds like. It's just a short answer. Maybe it's a name or a short subject. A paragraph is, as it says, a paragraph. So this is much more lines of text. You can add all kinds of information. You can ask your users to give you a short story if you want to, but just more information there. We have multiple choice. And multiple choices will be radio buttons, so they will be, you can only choose one out of the buttons. Check boxes, this is where you can check multiple boxes. Your drop down, so you can offer your users a drop down menu. You can also add file upload, so if you need them to submit some kind of file, it could be a PDF or an image.
I don't know why.
I'm shipping headphones.
Okay. I don't know.
And next we have linear scale. So you can ask somebody to rate something, and you can choose how to rate that. You can add as many options as you want. Multiple choice grid. So this is where you have lots of rows and lots of columns. And the checkbox grid, similar, but they get to check as many as they want. A date and a time. So that's a quick rundown of the options that you have in each question. So if we were to start our form and start adding some questions here, maybe the first thing you want somebody to add is their name. So I clicked within the title of this question, I changed it to name. And then automatically, you notice that it changed to short answer because Google Forms is intuitive. It knows what you want basically out of the form. So as you change it, it will try to choose the correct type of question for you. Double check this all the time because it may not choose it for you. So just keep an eye on that. Now I can choose to require this question, or if I don't want it required, all I have to do is toggle that button off. So I'm going to keep it required. Underneath the little kebab menu over here, our more menu, you can add a description or a response validation. I'll get to that in a moment. So the description just adds a little description about this question here. Now, this looks good. I have my name. It's a short answer. I'm going to add a question. So I go to the plus sign up here, add the question directly below the one that was highlighted. So if I go back to this first question and it is highlighted and I click that plus button, it is going to add the question right below that. So just keep that in mind as you're adding questions. It will always add one underneath the currently highlighted question. Now you can always reorder them at any time. So if I hover my mouse right over these little dots up here, you'll see that it is giving me this new cursor. So I'm going to hold my mouse button down, click on that, and then I can adjust it and move it to where I want it. So you can kind of customize it as you go, or once you get all your questions in, if you want to reorder, you can reorder them. So I'm going to go back to this first one. Now maybe I want to add an email. So again, it chooses my short answer, but how do I make sure that somebody enters this as a real email address? So what I'm going to do is down here in this Bob menu, I go down to response validation. It will be text, and I want it to contain an email. So automatically it's going to check and make sure this is a valid email address, or at least it is formatted like an email address. So I can add some custom error checks here. So if somebody does not add a valid email, I can make sure that they are notified. So I'll say a valid email. So I've got my name, my email, and maybe here I would like to give them a chance to add some comments. So I've made this a paragraph, I've added comments and description. I'll do description and say, please provide your comments. So that's a quick little rundown of how to add new questions to your form. At any time, I can go back into the question and change the title. I can add a description. I can change the type of answer that I'm looking for. I can also, within my settings, I can shuffle my question order. So here it says shuffle question order. I can toggle that on. And every time this form appears, the questions will shuffle. Okay, so we've added a few questions and I've edited those questions. I've even shuffled the order. So I want to check and see what this form is going to look like. And I'm going to do this as I go to make sure I like the look of it. And I want to see what my users are actually going to see. So in the top right-hand corner, there's this little eyeball. I'm going to click on that and you see it says preview. I'll click on that. And now it's showing me exactly what my users are going to see. So it is picking up my email address. This is Betty Buckles. It's asking for my comments. And if you notice, it's not the same order that I put those questions in my form when I was editing it, because I offered to shuffle those questions. So it's going to appear different every time. The little red star says that this is a required question, and each one of these questions is required. So it's looking good. I like the look of that. So in my settings, I have a few different options. I'm going to go to responses first. So within my responses, I can actually collect email addresses from every single user that uses this form. So if I toggle that on, it's automatically going to collect the email address, which also is going to require that person to log in. So I'm going to collect that email address from them. And then what I want to do is send them a copy of their response. So I'm going to choose always. You can keep this off if you want, or if you can allow your user to request the copy of their response. And once I chose that, now you can allow your user to change their responses after they've submitted them. So that's kind of a nice option. If you're allowing them to go back in and update their information, you want to toggle this one on. If I scroll down, you can now restrict the users. If you are using a personal account, this option will not be available to you. Your form will be available to anybody that has the link. If you are within our organization, within the Buckles organization and trusted organizations, you can have the option here to toggle this on. So it restricts the users to only those in the organization, or if you toggle it off, anybody with the link will be able to use it. You can also limit it to one response. So you can say you can only enter your information once. But because I have response editing on, my users can still go in and edit their information. If you want them to enter as much information as possible or as many times as you want, you then make sure this is toggled off. Down below in the presentation portion, we have a confirmation message. So this is anytime your users submit the form, this is the response that is going to appear on their screen. So if I click edit, I'll be able to go in here and edit this information. Maybe I'll say, thank you for submitting your information. Click save, and that is what my users will see every time they click submit. If you would like them to be able to submit another response, like we turned that on before, we made sure that this limit to one response is off. Here you'll see I can now show a link to submit another response. If I shut that off, my users will not have that link within their, once they submitted their form. If you notice, if I turn off limit to one response, if I turn it on, this option is no longer available. You see it's grayed out here. So as long as I keep that off, I will be able to, my users will be able to see that link to submit another response. You can also offer your users the chance to see the results summary. So if this is information you want to share with them, you're taking a poll and you want to share that information. If you toggle that on, they will also receive a link to this summary. So while we're in our settings, I want to show one other piece of this. So I've got my questions here, and I'm going to send this out to my audience. And I want them to start entering their information. But before I do that, I want my team to be able to check it with me. So I'm going to add some collaborators. So this is very similar to Google Docs and Google Sheets, where you added your team members. If you go to the kebab menu on the top right-hand corner and click on that, you'll see an option here called Add Collaborators. So anybody that you add to this, if I add some, let's say Wendy Wyckoff, I add her here, I can choose only editor, because anybody who is added to this list will be able to come into the form and edit any part of it. So they'll be able to edit the individual questions, they'll be able to edit the responses, and also any of the settings. So just take note of that. Anybody you add to this will have all of those same privileges that you have. You can choose to notify them and add a little message and click send. That will send it off to Wendy. She will get an email about it, and then she'll be able to come in here and edit this with me. So this is looking good. I like the way the title is. The colors, maybe I want to change the colors here. So if I go up to this little palette up here, you'll see it says customize theme. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it's going to give me some options. I'm going to I can choose a header image. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to choose a header image. Let's, for now, just choose this one. I'll click insert, and then it's going to change my theme colors. So already Google Forms has chosen some colors that match really well with my theme. So I can choose to change the theme color here or the background color and kind of make things stand out in a different way. So I'm going to go and preview this again, just like I did before. And this is what it's going to look like for all of my users. Again, it is shuffling those questions as we go. You'll notice there's 2 email questions now because we turned on the option, if I go back to settings, to collect email addresses. So it's really not necessary for me to create an email question. So if I go back to my question, and now I go down to the email, the one that I created, and highlight that just by clicking in it, I'm going to delete this question. So I'll click the little trash can icon, it will delete that question. And now when I go up to preview it, the email question is still here because this is the one that is provided by Google Forms. It's collecting my email. Okay, so why are there 2? Great, exactly. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to a form that I created earlier, so we can look at some of the different options. Sorry, wrong one. There we go. So within this form, I added a header image here. This is my example form. This is my title. I have a description underneath. It's collecting emails for my Buckles users. I have a name, which is a short answer. And then I started adding new types of answers here. So this is my multiple choice answer. And if you notice, I just typed in a couple of different options, and they're going to appear as radio buttons. So my user will be able to choose one of these options. My next one is a drop down. So here are my options here. If I want to add one more here, I click within that, and I'm going to add that option and hit enter. And that automatically adds the option. And now it's also added another option down at the bottom, but I don't want that. So I'm going to remove it by clicking that X button, and it removes it. So these will appear as a drop down, and I made it required. The next one is the checkbox grid. So I've got a row with 4 options, and I've got another row with the same 4 options. So as I add these rows, it will keep the same columns of the same 4 options for those rows. And then lastly, I had my linear scale option, and I chose to go from 1 to 5, and my lowest is poor, and my highest is amazing. And then lastly, my comments, that is a paragraph. Notice I did not require this question here. So let's go and see what this form actually looks like. I'll click on the preview. And here is my form. This is what my user is seeing. So we have the title of the form. I'm collecting the emails. I'm going to fill this out with my name. Let's say Betty. Which one best describes you? If I choose youth or adult, it will switch. So I'm going to say adult. And then here's my drop-down menu. And let's go with Snickers. And which items do you like best? I have the option here to check as many as I want. And I added my description, please check all that apply. So I can check as many of these as I want. And then how would I rate it? Here's my linear scale. Notice it will change as I click a new option. And lastly, my comment. And then when I'm done, I click submit. Here's my response that I filled out earlier. Thanks for taking the time to fill out our form. A copy has been sent to the email address you provided. Have a great day. And it's being sent to the email address they provided because that was an option that I chose. So if I go back to my form and go to settings, my responses, I'm going to send a copy of their response, and I chose always. So my user is getting that, and I wanted to make sure that my response confirmation message reflected that. So here it is, a copy has been sent to the email address you provided. So I'm back on my form. If you notice, my responses now have a 1 next to it. So I'm going to go to the responses, and I'll see that this response was submitted by Betty at buckles.org. Her name is Betty, and now I have some nice graphs here kind of showing me her responses, and as more responses come in, that will update these graphs as well. So it's kind of at a glance, it's really nice to see what people say. Once there are more responses, you'll be able to click through them and see the individual responses, or you can see the summary. So this is the summary page. On the way to the right, you'll see the individual one. So this is Betty's individual responses here. And then you can see it by question. So here's the name, and if I click through, I'll be able to see her individual responses or the summary of responses by question. There's another great way of viewing this information, and that's within the Google Sheets. So Google Forms and Google Sheets are directly related. So you can take all of this information and put it into a Google Sheet. So if you click on the kebab menu, you can decide to select the response destination. So you can choose this to go to a specific sheet that you have. Or if you go ahead and just click on this and you haven't created a sheet for it, it will automatically create a new spreadsheet, and it will title it whatever you choose to title it. It's choosing example form responses, because that is the name of my form, example form, and these are the responses. Or you can select an existing spreadsheet that you already have. So I'm going to click create. It will open the Google Sheet for me, and you'll see this is my first response from Betty. It automatically made my column headings. As I scroll through, it automatically froze those headings up at the top. That row is frozen. So it's nice layout for me. And I can see all the responses at a glance. So I've now made my form, I've edited my questions, I collaborated with somebody to make sure that the questions look good. I did my test run and I filled out that form to make sure that looks good. And I have also auto inputted them into a Google Sheet. Just keep in mind, anybody who you added as a collaborator will also be able to see this Google Sheet. Now, the last thing I really need to do is to share this with my audience. So if you go to the send button up here and click on that, I have 3 different options. I can email it to somebody, and all I have to do is enter an email address. And then if I want to add another one, it will automatically add that. They just need to be comma separated. And then you can include the form in the email here and click send. This is also a place where you can add the collaborators. You can create a link for this form. And here's the form link. If I just click copy, it will copy that link to my clipboard. And then when I'm ready to paste it into an email, it'll paste that link. Or I can shorten that URL so it's a nice compact view of the link. And now just copy that. I can also embed this form. So it embeds as an iframe. So if you want to embed this onto your website, you can do that right from here. You can choose your width and height. And you can also send this to your Facebook page or your Twitter account. And it's going to ask you, if you click on those, it'll ask you to sign into those accounts. So now we've created a form, we've edited our responses, we've tested it, we've sent it out to our users. Our users are going to start sending those responses in. I will see them appear here. From this view in my summary, I can also print all the responses. I can download those responses into a CSV file, which is a comma separated file. So if you're going to open this in a different database or something, or even in your Excel file, you can do that here. I can also choose to unlink the form. So if I've decided I made a mistake in here and I need to stop collecting information, I need to go in and change that, I can just unlink the form from here. So I was in my responses, went to this kebab menu and chose unlink form. So it's going to unlink the form from the spreadsheet. And what I also need to do is turn off collecting responses. So this is right here, this toggle button. I'm going to stop accepting the responses. So two different ways to kind of make sure no new information is sent out, or sorry, collected. So basically that is a quick rundown of Google Forms. Remember, there are also templates. So you can choose a template and then edit that template if you want. So if you like, I'm going to go back to my drive, choose new form. And if I choose from template and I go in here, if I like something within here and I like the way it looks, but I want to alter it, you can easily choose that form and then go in and just alter this as you go. Just remember to rename it. And the best thing about Google Forms, just like Google Docs and Sheets, it saves as you go. So you don't have to worry about clicking that save button constantly so you don't lose your information. Remember to check or preview your form as you go as well. It's a great way to see what your users are going to see. So at this time, I'd like to open it up to questions. Darlene, did we have any questions come in?
So we do have a few questions. And we have one question in the chat box. Can you preset a date to stop accepting responses?
That's a great question. And I will have to look into that. I don't know the question. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but we'll find it and let you know. Okay.
And I have two other questions that I'm asking. So if anyone else has any questions, please start to type them into the Q&A box. So Joseph, when would you send a copy of a response back to the user? When would that be applicable?
For them to see the responses that they have submitted, I think it's great for them anytime that they're going to see if they are adding their information to some type of database, or you just want to make sure that they see what they provided, the information they provided to you, so they can double check their work too, especially if you're going to offer them the chance to come in and edit their information.
Okay, so kind of like a checks and balance then?
Right, exactly. I think it's always safe to send them their information, and then you can say, look, this is the information you sent to us. So if any of it's wrong, it's on you.
Okay. That's a good option. And could you explain when you're seeing the responses, I believe you said that you can have them into Google Sheets, or you can have them into a CSV format.
Yeah.
Is there a difference or a benefit of one over the other?
Well, the CSV file is going to allow you to open it in other applications. So a Google Sheet is you're only viewing that in a Google Sheet. So if you want to input this information into a database that you have, then you're going to need a CSV file. And you can also easily open it up into Excel and other applications. Okay.
And we do have a few questions in the question box. How do you add a description text into the question field and answer field? I only see the option to add title and description, which adds a separate module from the question.
So within here, within my question, if I go down to this kebab menu and I add a description, it will add the description for this question. So this is name, and I'll say, please type your name. And now when I go to preview this, you'll see it here. This is describing this question. my user to let them know what the information I'm looking for if it's not clear from the title. Did that answer your question?
Michelle, let us know if that answers your question, please. Is there any way to automatically number the responses?
When you say automatically number them, you mean put them in a specific order? Whatever order you have them in here, and you go to settings, as long as you don't, go here, as long as you don't shuffle the question order, it will keep them in that same order. There are other ways of kind of forcing the view for your user. You can add a section here. So by choosing this, and I created a new section. When I view this now, the only thing they're going to see is section by section. So I thought we would go into sections and other things that are more detailed in another class.
Okay. So Linda would also like to know how many responses have been received.
Okay.
So
So
I think that ties into the numbering responses, Joseph.
Yeah.
So you can see at a quick glance from my form under responses, this number over here will tell you how many responses you have received. I'm not sure I understood the rest of the question though. They will also be listed here under the summary. You'll see all of them listed. So if I were to do another response, if I were to, let's do this. Oh, that's not going to work. So if I were to add another response to the form, it would appear here, it'll say 2. And under the summary, you'll see the list of the next person who responded. I'm not sure if that answers the question.
I just wondered if on the Google Sheet where the responses are tallied, whether there's a way to number them. I tried to do it on one that I'm working on right now, and I numbered from 1 to 75 because there's a limit of 75 for this particular event. But when a new person entered, the numbering didn't work. You know, that she was number 29 and there was just a blank space in the column where I had the numbers. So I was just wondering whether there's a way to do it automatically, but I didn't understand about the summary section, so that would probably solve my problem. I added another column to the left of the timestamp and then numbered it, starting with 1 on the first, response. But I just wondered, was I doing something wrong?
So you had this column numbered, and when the response came in, it added a blank line, basically? Is that what happened?
Yeah, I added a column to the left of column A and made it a number column.
Right.
Because this one is going to start with number 2 as the first.
Right.
And I suppose I can just look at that number column and deduct 1, but I just wondered if there was a way of.
Right. You can do that. You can look at the number column and deduct 1, but there are ways of doing it, and within AppScript where you write it so that it automatically adds it, but it doesn't have to be a question on your form. It's a little bit more involved. But if you have all of your responses in first, then I would say go in and add the column. If you just want to add a column from 1 to 75, I would wait until all the responses are in.
Okay, we have to limit it to 75. That's why
Gotcha.
That's why I wondered, but I can just handle it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Joseph, Question. Why would you want to shuffle the questions?
Why would you want to? Sometimes if you're doing a quiz type of form, you can shuffle questions. I can't really think of another great example of shuffling, maybe because it just doesn't matter.
Okay, thank you. How do you know the width and the height of the link to embed in your website?
That has to do with your website. Whatever the space where the iframe is going to be placed, you need to know that size.
Okay. What?
So I would ask your webmaster or your web developer what size it should be.
Okay. And this looks like the last question. If anybody has any questions, please type them into the Q&A box. Once you've selected Google Sheets as your destination, will all new responses be added to the sheet?
Yes. So every time a new response comes in, you will see it on this sheet. And there are so many other things that you can do with Google Sheets and Google Forms. You can write all kinds of app scripts so that when a new response comes in, it will create a document that fills out a document template that you've created. It's very cool, actually. Darlene and I do this for some of the things that come in for our forms. It will automatically create a document for you and fill in the required information. You can automatically send the email to or send an email to somebody else. So, for example, when somebody contacts a Buckles committee, I've written a script so that it goes directly to the committee chairs, and they got not only the latest information to be added to the Google Sheet, but they get links directly to that Google Sheet. So those are much more advanced and they're much more involved. If you go under extensions, you'll see app script, and that's where you would do that. A lot of things you can find right online by going, just Googling that information. Look for that information and it'll teach you how to write it. A little knowledge in coding is very, very helpful, especially if you have JavaScript knowledge. But there are also things called add-ons. So under extensions, the first one is called add-ons. You can add on all kinds of different things. So I think it was Linda before was asking limiting the number of responses. We were talking about limiting to 75. There's one called, don't quote me on it, I believe it's called response limiter. There's an add-on that you can get for that. So if you go to extensions and add-on, you can get an add-on here, or you can go from your form. So down here at the bottom of this menu, you'll see add-ons. So you can find multiple things out. There's all kinds of things in the add-on marketplace. So check that out.
Great.
If you ever have a question about anything Google related, definitely Google it. It has become a verb. So you just go into Google and type in the information that you're looking for, and you'll get lots and lots of responses. Avoid the ones that say ad next to them, because that's an advertisement.
Are there automatic summaries for analyzing responses?
Are there automatic summaries? Well, I'm not sure. So on this response page, you'll see here under summary, there are automatic ones that come up. So it's basically telling you, like this gives you the pie graph here, depending on the type of question that it is. So there are automatic ones that will fill in this response page.
Elin, does that answer your? Okay, great, thank you. Let's see. Okay, I think that's it for for questions. I do see the request, Joseph, that once you have the answer regarding setting a date to stop accepting responses, to share it with everyone.
Thank you for reminding me. So that again would be within within an add-on, and I believe it's called Limit Submissions, or that was the one for. There is an add-on that you can choose for that. Google Forms does not automatically, as far as I can see, it does not automatically it doesn't allow you to set a date when you're going to stop collecting them, but you can go in, of course, and toggle this here to say you're not accepting responses anymore. But you can definitely get an add-on that will allow that to happen. I haven't found anything other than that.
Okay, thank you, Joseph.
You're welcome.
I think that's it for the questions. So just a few closing remarks. Again, many thanks to Joseph Palmer, our Web Development and Product Coordinator, for another excellent class. Our next class in the series is in 2 weeks, which is Monday, July 11th at 10 o'clock. We are skipping the week of 4th of July. The topic for the next class is Google Slides. And again, I'd like to thank our directors, staffers, trustees, and friends of the library for attending. And if you just have your first name or a non-descriptive name, please email me to let me know you've attended. Certificates will be created for those who attend all 8 classes, and they'll be sent at the end of the series. And I'll be sending an evaluation form to everyone. Please complete it. Even if you've already completed evaluations for the previous classes, your feedback helps us to plan future events. So I don't see anything else. So everyone, thanks again for attending. Have a great day. Thank you, Joseph.